Hey, this is Mark Brody today with Brohawk Solutions, and you're on the next episode of Coffee Talk with Brohawk. And I am so humbled, and it's such a pleasure to have my guest today, Isokoy,
Isokoy.
Isokoy
Right.
McDermott. And we've been talking over the past 4 or 5 months or so, about doing this episode. And Isaac, can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and just do a quick intro of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark, first and foremost, thank you for having me. So,
My
as Mark
my
said, my
pleasure.
name is Isokoy McDermott, and generational communication is my specialty. There's something about being able to help connect individuals. And one of the things that I believe is probably the most easiest way of being able to see the divides within corporate America is through generations and the way that we hire. And the reason that I love talking about generations is because for a lot of individuals, it is extremely disarming. And as we can move from a disarming place, we can then be able to get into some of the deeper things because where I love to focus after we begin to notice the differences in generations is on the people themselves, because the discord that we see starts with self. So if we can work on the self, then we have an opportunity to truly change what's going on and happening outside because it all starts from the inside out.
So that's why, whenever we take an airplane ride, we get on a plane, they always tell you to put your mask on before helping others. you know. And So I love the approach that you go with, that you have to look inside first and fix inside first before you can, really have that open communication externally.
For
So
sure.
when we were young and seeing our parents and grandparents grow in their careers, there were certain expectations for employees and employers. If your boss asked you to do something, then you just did it and you didn't, question. How are you seeing those expectations a little bit different, or have they become different today versus what our parents and grandparents may have experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why I love this question is because this is one that I believe has been happening very incrementally and has finally turned the corner, right? It is something, the reason that I say it's been happening very incrementally is because individuals have been looking for different ways to work. And you begin to see that with the different industries that you would see um, a large area of the population within, right? And we started to see that change and shift and morph as more and more technology begin to become more and more pervasive. Now, not only are we seeing technology growing and shifting, we're also seeing individuals growing and shifting as well, right? We've got Generation Z, which I believe has been so far beginning to show us that individuals are moving into a more awakened state, if you will. And by awakened, I'm meaning more so awareness, knowing and understanding who they are, where they are, how they fit in, or more importantly, how they would like to fit in. And there are more and more individuals who are beginning to choose the way that they fit in and understanding that, hey, the way that I fit in might not necessarily be like other people. They have begun to really understand what has been dubbed as naive realism. And essentially, what that is it's a term that helps us to understand that you and I may have difference of opinions with regard to any type of disagreement that we might have, right? Maybe it is something with regard to the Laurel versus I don't remember if it was Lonnie or like the gold dress versus like the silver dress,
Oh
where
yeah, yeah.
individuals were able to see different things, right? And
Uh-huh.
I feel like I've messed both of those up, but I think I've hit it hard enough to where
Yes.
individuals can kind of understand what I'm saying with regard to that particular disagreement. And once we begin to understand that it's those types of disagreements that happen regularly, And the difference between a disagreement and conflict is once you begin to add in additional layers on the importance of things that we have a particular disagreement on, the amount of evidence, for example, that you might have to back up or support your point. And last but not least, the interdependency that you and I have with regard to the belief that you have about that particular subject is whenever we start to move into conflict. And what have really enjoyed is we've begun to see how this conflict in the workplace is starting to play out to where now remote work is not something that is a far cry from what is happening, but more so something that is either a standard if not hybrid. And this is something that generations have been talking about more and more and more and more, with millennials being one of the loudest generations speaking about the desire for more flexibility in the workplace. So, what we're starting to see now as well, managerially, is that you also have to ensure that whenever you're showing up as a manager, you are not just managing, but you're coaching. You are not just mandating, but you're mentoring. You are not just telling, but you are also showing. There's a difference now with regard to the way that we manage individuals. And it's no longer a dictatorship, so to speak, where you are telling individuals what they need and have to do. Because of the pandemic, individuals have changed and have
Yes.
changed remarkably. And not just individuals in Austin,
Yeah.
not just individuals in Texas, not just individuals in the United States, but individuals all around the world. This was a global pandemic that has affected, still affects so many people every single day. And it is truly understanding the gravity of that that brings us into why we as employers and
Yep.
employees need to be able to understand how they can not fit in anymore, but be a culture add. And as managers, how you can help enable that culture add so that you are helping to grow the entire person as opposed to just the employee. And that again is another stark difference between when my mom was going to work versus now me going to work and moving into the future where my daughter will be moving into work. So
Yes.
there are so many things that are going on and happening with the generations. And again, I believe that it begins to give us more insight into where things are going. If we could kind of look back at the breadcrumbs of success, we can start to piece the picture together.
I like that. Look back at the breadcrumbs of success. Um, what was that fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel? And in order to understand where they were going, they had to recognize where they had come from.
Absolutely.
And when you said that kind of brought it very a higher level of realization that people really need to never forget where they came from and how they got to where they are today. Um, and when our parents and grandparents were going through their journey as as employees or entrepreneurs today, um, it's so important that we recognize that the doors that have been opened up for us,
Yeah.
the opportunities that we've been provided, are a result of years and decades and generations of work prior to us, and um, I mean, could our parents or grandparents ever imagine, A, working on a computer, B, working on a computer from home and having a conversation like this,
Yeah.
as part of how they make money. Um, and so I love that. Um, the breadcrumbs. I great visual. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
All good.
so you and I have spoken a lot. I mean, you were a speaker at the Austin Contact Center Alliance symposium this past October.
It was great.
But you and I have also had just one-off conversations over the past few months, and we really have gotten into some really deep, what I would say deep topics. And one of those topics we discussed was being conscious of the unconscious.
Yeah,
Um, how can or should leaders lean into to being more conscious of the unconscious? And
absolutely.
I think we were when we were talking about that, it was really we were talking about bias. I have a feeling, and understanding that hey, everybody has bias, and we're not talking, racial, gender, anything like that, but there's a bias that each one of us, comes to the table with about how a job should be done, and the lens that we look at situations, at, you know, again, how do you think leaders can and should lean into to being more conscious of the unconscious?
Sure, sure. So let me first share a, a quick story. And the reason I paused like that was because I normally don't tell anybody that I'm going to share a story. I just share the story. So here it goes. My daughter was getting on to me not too long ago. Was taking her to school and we were starting to run a little bit late. And I was looking for my favorite mug. There's just a mug that I love to drink out of, right? I love to have my coffee in this mug. I don't know if you got a mug like that or not, Mark, but
I do.
it's essentially my coffee mug. And it's not to say that if I can't find this mug, I can't drink coffee. I mean, come on, I've got a second favorite mug. Like, come on, like there's like a hierarchy of my mug game, right? So I was
Exactly.
looking for my favorite mug. I could not find my mug. Finally, I found my mug and I was drinking my coffee. And my daughter asked, Dad, why did we have to take so long for you to find that mug? And of course, my answer was simple. It's my favorite mug, boo. Like this isn't a hard thing. Uh, but the reason I talk about that is sometimes we don't truly understand a bias until we can break it down into a very common form, like a mug. You see, the reason I kept looking for that specific mug is because that specific mug was my favorite, meaning I have a level of bias towards that specific mug because
Yeah.
that's the mug that I want to use the most. It's
Yeah.
not to say that I don't like other mugs. It's not to say that I can't drink out of other mugs. It is simply to say that I am intentionally
Yes.
favoriting one mug.
Uh-huh.
Now, when it comes to the workplace, bias is one of the things that continues to creep in. Why? Because every single human being is biased. You cannot get rid of bias. Let me say that one more time. Contrary to popular opinion, you cannot get rid of bias. Bias is what makes you who you are. Now, what you can do is you can shift biases, or what I like to call blocks, what others have also called blind spots. You see, as you can continue to understand where your biases are, then you have an opportunity to unblock yourself. Then you also have an opportunity to tell other individuals about those particular blocks so that if something is in a blind spot of yours, not only can you recognize it, but hopefully you've created accountability around you to help recognize it as well.
Yes.
So, when it comes to bias or blocks in the workplace, one of the things that I have continued to hear, especially when I broach topics that are a bit more sensitive, like race, like sexual orientation, like women in executive positions, like bodily autonomy, when we start to get into these deeper, more sensitive topics, you begin to see that bias begins to creep in. And bias ties right back into what we were speaking about before, which is that naive realism, essentially
Mhm.
stating that the way that I feel and see the world is the way that you feel and see the world. And when we get into conflict, when we get into conflict, is when we are high in those three things: importance, interdependency, and evidence on your side as to why you're right. So if we can take a step back and if we can understand that multiple truths can exist, the way that I like to define this, I've got my ear pod here, and I like to define this as talking about a truth and then adding on another truth. So there's a truth called gravity, right? Essentially, with gravity, states that, what goes up must come down. So I've got my ear pod here. If I were to throw this up, Mark, what should happen?
It should come back down.
It should come back down, right? All
Yeah.
right. So this, okay. Gravity
Yes.
exists.
I passed the test.
You got an A today, Mark. Gravity exists. Now, here in a little bit, in fact, right after this session, you said that you were going to do what?
I'm heading out of town on an airplane.
You're heading out of town on an airplane. Hold on a
Yeah.
second. How are you going to get from Austin, Texas to where are you headed, Mark?
New York.
New York, when gravity exists. It's because there is another truth of aerodynamics that
Mhm.
also exists. So if we can just simply take a step back, take a breath, and understand that simply because someone feels a particular way and they feel strongly about that
Yeah.
does not necessarily mean that we have to immediately try to force our thoughts and beliefs on that individual. What we can do is understand where the truth is in both perspectives or multiple perspectives. And then from there, help us all to create the reality that it is that we're looking for. Because another reason that we move into conflict is because everyone wants this world to be better for their children.
So true. And I love the way you kind of went through um, the the bias, the bias topic of it's all based on the lens that you see things through and how you expect others to also see things through, you know. Um, and that that creates some interesting um, ways of looking at things within the workplace because as a Gen Xer, um, I have a certain lens of experiences that I've come to the table with. You know, um, in your generation,
Yeah.
um, I believe that you're probably like a Gen Y, um,
Millennial. Yeah.
a
Gen Y.
millennial. Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things that you come to the table with your lens and experiences from neither one are wrong.
Absolutely.
Um, um, both of them are right in their own regards. And it's so important for people to not get so stuck in in the in their personal biases, in their personal lens, their frame of references, that they forget that hey, there's a whole other truth out here. Um, that whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, fact based, non-fact based, experience based, it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just different. Um, and I think it's important for people to be able to have those types of conversations Um, Now, one of the other things that we've talked about is being an inspirational leader.
Yeah,
Now, and I'm kind of pivoting here a little bit.
sure.
Um, so, what does being an inspirational leader mean and look like to you?
Yeah. The word inspire has been an interesting word for me for a very long time. And it wasn't until I started my company that the word inspire really finally came into view. The root word, the etymology of the word inspire comes from Latin. And you've got in, or in Latin, inna, and you have spiere. And in spiere. So inna means into, and spiere means breathe. So the word inspire literally means to breathe into. That's where the word inspire comes from. When I was younger, I used to love the word, used to love the show Baywatch.
Yeah,
I don't know. mm, Let me not say that.
who didn't?
I was a young boy who enjoyed the show for all of the reasons that you would imagine, right?
Yeah,
Like the acting, the writing was it was beautiful. The audio. Nah, I'm joking. You all
yeah,
know why I enjoyed
exactly.
watching Baywatch. As I would watch Baywatch though, and they would save individuals, they would have to, give them CPR or maybe even give them mouth to mouth. And every single time that they had, kind of come back, right? It was like a and I always thought that that was very interesting is that there's always a breath in. When I think about waking up in the morning, it's typically a breath
Yes.
in, right? And I sit and I think about um, in Genesis, it says that the Lord breathed into man. And I sit and I think about how important breath is and to breathe into. And inspiration to me goes so much deeper because it is literally breathing into another individual. There's something about getting around other people who are pregnant with purpose, who can just make your baby kick, who can remind you about all of that greatness that you've got inside of you, who can say something that just resonates with you in a way that you begin to get goosebumps, who can say, hey, this is your sign. Hey, you've been waiting on it. Hey,
Yes.
this is not a coincidence that we're having this conversation. Hey, you needed to hear these specific words today for you to start moving in the direction that you've always known you should. Hey, it's okay to have logic. It's also okay to have emotion. You see, there are actually more neurons in our stomach than there is in our brain. And I think that that's one of the things that we fail to realize is that we've got two guiding systems. We've got two guiding systems because we are broadcasting and receiving all day long.
Yeah.
But sometimes the reason that we don't get what it is that we are desiring is because the first time I got a set of walkie talkies was the day that my life changed. As a child, walkie talkies, are you kidding me? So when I was younger, I mean, I lived still in the era where you could let children just go. And I would
Yep.
literally leave the house at like 3 when I got out of school, and I would come back before the street lights went off. No cell phone. I'm sorry, when came on. No cell phone. Really, no way to call you unless I happened to go to a friend's house, but that probably wouldn't last too long because we had bicycles. I want to go
Yep.
over here. I want to go to the park, and you would just do your own thing. And walkie talkies changed the game for me, Mark, because the moment that we got walkie talkies, we were literally able to not only do our own thing, but still be in communication with who we needed to be in communication with, i.e., my friends. It's not like the walkie talkie was at the house, right? Like,
Exactly.
this is like, let's go do what we want to do. Stuff that a whole bunch of young boys did. Crazy
Uh-huh.
stuff, dumb stuff. Thank God. All right. So, anywho, what I loved about the walkie talkie was it gave me an opportunity to be able to say what I wanted to say and also be able to hear what I needed to hear. But when I first got the walkie talkies, I didn't really understand that as long as I'm holding the button, I can't hear what I need to hear. I'm
Mhm.
saying what I want to say, but I can't hear what I need to hear.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I started to figure that out that, oh, I need to let go of the button. And then you begin to move into areas where they're using this type of technology a whole lot more, and they begin to say over, right? So that you
Yeah.
knew that I'm done talking. And then they would say, Roger that, so that you knew that I heard what you said. Now, how often are we constantly walking around with our finger on the button? Constantly asking and talking about things, the mental chatter just going and going and going and going and going. And oh my gosh, and I'm striving and I'm striving and I'm striving. And the thing is, if you can get to a place of where you can let your finger off of that button and just simply listen, simply receive, slow down. Every single one of my sessions has started with a meditation.
Yes.
I need individuals to slow down, get back into your body. If what you were doing was working, I don't even need to finish that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's inspirational to me. That story, because the whole concept of trying to talk more than listen,
Mm,
I mean, that's that's the basis of a lot of the communication problems that people run into in the workplace, personally, professionally, and honestly, societally. You know, their finger is always on the talk button, and they're never willing to listen. There's a title for a book you could write there.
Take your finger off the button.
Get your finger off the button. Exactly. Exactly.
One mouth, two ears. I feel like we could keep on going. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's so many opportunities here. Oh man, but that was a great analogy though. Um,
Thank you.
so just to kind of wrap up real quick,
Yeah.
you've been a successful leader in your professional career, and you're someone who trains other leaders as part of your company as well. What are the three must dos, but also the must do nots, for leading in a multi-generational, multicultural workplace?
Mm,
Um,
mm. That's good. So you said that we were wrapping up, so I'll be quick. Must do's: consistently learn, and consistently learn about something that is outside of what you would normally learn about. Um, don't just talk about it, do it, or lead by example. Um, Whenever it comes to being able to connect with individuals more in the workplace, it's going to require you to connect with individuals more outside of the workplace. The illusion of separation stated that what happens in work stays at work and what happens at home stays at home. And the reason that it's called an illusion of separation is the pandemic has helped to show us that It's just not true. And the thing was, it never was true. However, we had an opportunity to create a break within the day, typically by taking our vehicle and going from home to another space. With that said, if you were irritated or frustrated with your partner before you left the house, then guess what? It's not like you all of a sudden weren't irritated and stressed out with your partner when you hit the office. All of
Exactly.
that's still there.
Yeah.
If work is going crazy and your boss is telling you that you need to hurry up and do XYZ, or the numbers aren't where you need the numbers to be, that doesn't go away the moment you leave work and you come back home.
Yeah.
So that was an illusion of separation that has now been removed. The veil is lifted. So lead by example and actually do what it is that you say you should do. And last but not least is seek connection. Seek connection. It is one thing to hear someone, it is another to listen, and it is yet another to connect. How can you connect? You can connect through inclusivity. How can you connect through inclusivity? You can connect over the things that you like. And once you can connect over the things that you like, individuals will begin to share the things that they like, and then you can begin to understand connections. Now, after you begin to understand connections, then you can utilize additional tools that, of course, Mark, you told me to give you three. And since we're getting low on time, I will move into the things not to do.
It was a good teaser because I definitely want people to be able to reach out and have you do a session just on do's and don'ts. So
100%.
yeah,
100%. Because there is a leadership philosophy, and without that intentionality, you begin to miss.
yeah,
Now, back to the things not to do. First, assume. Don't assume. Second, assume. Don't assume. Third, assume. Don't assume. I don't know another word that begins to create more and more separation than the word assume.
yes.
Don't assume. Ask questions. We did not come here to solve problems. We came here to ask questions and find answers. Ask questions and find answers. This has been so much fun, Mark.
Oh, you know, Isokoy, I mean, this every conversation that you and I get to have together, and I very much feel privileged and honored to have a conversation with you because you and I just we can sit here and
Likewise.
go down rabbit holes all day long, and next thing you know, uh, we'll be getting called home for dinner or something like that. uh, But just to wrap up really quick, speed round.
Yes.
So, what fact about you would people be surprised to learn?
My gosh, this is a good one. Because it's not that I can't find one. I feel like I share a lot of my own
Yeah,
personal life. I would say a fact about me that people would be surprised to learn. Um, I really love cooking. There's something about being able to see a physical creation happen in like
yes,
10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Like there's something about that that just inspires the creator in me. So yeah, I really enjoy cooking.
excellent. And if it tastes good, it helps everybody out around
100%. 100%.
you.
I'm not bad. I'm not bad.
Excellent, excellent. So, what is your ideal off the grid location?
Definitely be on a beach for sure. There's something about the heat that I enjoy. My entire family is Jamaican, first generation American, and I love the beach. I love tropical. I love lush, luxurious places. Yeah, that'd be it.
I figured that there was going to be another Baywatch tie-in to that also. Oh, that's awesome. So, Isokoy, if someone wants to learn more about you and the
Yeah.
work you do, the type of public speaking that that you can bring to an organization, want to invite you, out to speak to their organization. I know you've done a lot of work here in Austin, with some of the city organizations. How should they go ahead and get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is leadersinspireleaders.com. And they can also, of course, just send me an email as well. My email address is just koy at leadersinspireleaders.com. That's KOY at leadersinspireleaders.com.
Excellent. Coy, thank you very much. This has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah,
I look forward to when you and I can, grab some coffee and have some real good coffee talk,
100%.
in the future. And thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to do this episode of Coffee Talk with Brohawk. And if you like this session, you want an introduction to Coy, I'd be more than happy to go ahead and do that for you. And you know, uh, help someone out in the industry that does some amazing work. So, Coy, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Mark.
All right, have a great day.